My guest this morning on Jersey Magazine is noted speaker and author Jenn Whitmer. Her new book is called Joyosity: How to Cultivate Intense Happiness in Work and Life. And I should point out the word intense, not just happiness, but intense. Jenn, good morning and welcome to Jersey Magazine.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. Also, the second subtitle I think is really important to the book, which is even if things are what they are. So, because,
Which I think
life.
describes for a lot of us the way things are right now.
Yes, indeed.
I
Indeed.
I thought, as we head into a new year, it would be good to have you on talking about, a lot of people decide that, well, I'm making a change, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but putting joy into things, which
Mhm.
is a word that I'm not sure we think about when we think about work. I don't know that we think, oh, I'm joyful about this. I have to go to work as opposed to I get to go to work.
Mhm.
So where does
Yeah.
that joy come from? How do you define the word joy?
Yeah, so I have a really specific definition of joy, which is joy is intense happiness that comes from being connected, feeling grateful, and being a part of something larger than yourself. So, those three components of joy are one, that you feel lucky that you get to do it. Like, oh, this is great. Like, I can't believe this. My luck, my fortune, this is amazing. Number two, you have a sense of connection and belonging. So when you're experiencing joy, it's not just your own quiet little thing. You feel connected to other people, like you belong with a group in a community. And then number three, the work that you're doing is meaningful and it's bigger than just you. Not necessarily like, oh my gosh, this is going to impact people 500 years from now. It doesn't have to be that big. But the work that you do is helping someone else in some way. It's meaningful. And we have meaning in all sorts of ways. I mean, I like to joke, I really appreciate that the people at the grocery store find the people who get the apples, because that means I don't have to go pick apples for myself or grow an orchard or anything like that. Like, I don't have to do those things. That problem that I have of getting food is solved by the people at the grocery store. So that producer gets to sell to a grocery store that gets to sell to the person who then puts the apples out and I pick them out. And that's meaningful. Like, I need apples. I really like apples, but so like those, it doesn't have to seem like you've changed the world, but you've meant something to solve a problem for someone else. And when you have those three components of joy, you feel favored or fortunate, you feel like you belong, and it's meaningful work that's bigger than you, we experience joy. And I think, well, I actually know from research and study that when we put that into the context of work, it really does fit, because nobody wants to go to work and do something that feels meaningless or painful or outside of your skill set. And we call that toil. And so the opposite of joy isn't work. The opposite of joy is toil, and work that feels like toil.
I think we all wonder, do we have an impact on people? I did
Mm-hmm.
overnights in radio for a couple of years, and there was a joke on the TV show WKRP. If you remember the
Uh-huh.
character, Dr. Johnny Fever, who was
Uh-huh.
exiled to overnights, and he cracked a line on the show once about the thing that every overnight disc jockey wonders. Is anybody really there? If the phone doesn't ring, you have no idea if somebody's listening or not at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Right, right. Yeah, you don't know. And so sometimes we have to do a little bit of work. And that's why part of the title is how to cultivate. It's not instant. It's not a checklist. It's a cultivation process. You have to work at it to find the connection to joy in your work, to then choose, well, how do I then put that in the center? So I came to this journey in a place that was meaningful work, but it had turned toxic. It was horrible. I got fired and rehired in the same meeting that had been my dream job. It was my dream job, and I was working with students. I was a assistant head of school, and I knew I could see the impact of my work every day. So it's not that joy isn't possible. It's just that things happen because people are going to people. And we live in a world that's imperfect. We live in a world that misplaces joy and puts something else in the center. So when you're thinking about, well, can I really have joy at work? Does this matter? You do have to do a little work to discover well, what is that joy for you? And how do I then put that into practice in my everyday life?
I've heard the expression, do what you love, and you will never work a day in your life. Now, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I mentioned, obviously we're on the radio, so radio is a part of my
Right.
background. I also have a background in baseball. I have coached at the youth and high school levels. I've been a minor league front office executive. But the best summer of my life was spent underneath the hood of a car my senior year of college, pumping gas and working on car engines. That
Oh
was
my
the
goodness.
absolute best. And I love baseball and I love radio, but it was getting dirty and greasy under the hood of a car, Jen, that gave me the most joy. When I think back on that summer, it's like,
Mhm.
wow, if I could relive 3 months, just three particular months of my life, it'd be those 3 months.
Well, I mean, I can't help but be like the joy coach here for a second. When you look back at that, what connection do you see to what you do now? Because there's got to be components that are the same, or you wouldn't still be doing what you're doing.
You
Like, what
know,
did you love about that?
I like working with my hands. I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it. And when you work on a car, if you can see the immediate result.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like instant gratification. Guy comes in, this car isn't working. I can get this thing going. I'll fix the carburetor, replace the spark plugs, do an oil change, that sort of thing. Boom, that customer says, "Wow, that's exactly what I needed. Thank you so much."
Yeah, you see the impact right away, and it's amazing. One of my favorite leaders that I ever worked for, his name was Josh, and he loved doing carpool. Now, carpool in a school is usually not someone's favorite job. Some people really love it, some don't. But carpool, he loved it because there was a beginning, there was an end, and there was a clear process of success. Like everybody got into a car safely, and you moved it out. We had a garage situation, and it was complicated. Carpool was, and so him making sure everybody stayed safe, and there was a very clear time ending to it. He loved it. Like it was one of the favorite things, which you wouldn't necessarily expect from a head of school or, the school leader. But we all have components of joy that aren't necessarily the center of our work. But what I've discovered in the research is that if you are doing the work that brings you joy 35% of the time, 35% of the time, and you're keeping the toil under 10, that's when you're feeling that good feeling of like, yes, I love doing this. This is amazing.
How much of joy at work do you think falls on the shoulders of the employer versus the employee?
That's a great question. And I think I'm going to give a lawyer answer, both. So, you, as an individual employee, cannot outsource your joy to somebody else. And so, for example, I just launched a book. Amazon has decided it's out of stock for some reason, even for all the hundreds of people who pre ordered it, didn't get it on time, which is super frustrating and completely out of my control. And so if I have outsourced my joy to the company, kind of thing, I can never experience joy because it's always dependent on somebody else's whims. So you, being CEO of your own desk, have to choose, how am I going to approach this? What is my mindset? What am I going to do to make this happen for me? Because you live a whole life. So you might not get 35% at work. You might need to have some of your 35% outside of work. And then for the organization, for the people who are designing how workplaces work, you putting joy in the center means that your people will outperform. Your people will stay. All of these indicators that we have, retention, engagement, all of that, those are lagging indicators of designing your organization for joy. And so it is both and. You need individuals taking responsibility for themselves, and you need organizations that decide we're going to put joy in the center, and that will actually get us the profit, the engagement, the retention, the customers, the creativity, the innovation, all of those things that we want.
You mentioned that you had worked in a toxic environment, and I have 3 children, and two of them have recently either started a new job or had a transition at work. And I've said to two of them that you need to find a way to work for yourself.
Mm.
And I often wonder if that, I mean, obviously there are responsibilities whether you start your own company.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mentioned baseball. I have a side hack where I set up my own lessons. I am in charge of that. That is
Hmm.
entirely on me. But I wonder if, with the hassles of starting your own company, I don't have a company, but you understand what I mean. If
Yeah.
my two kids were to start their own company, you know, the hassles of doing that, the struggle, the stress of that, how do they get joy there?
Mm. Well, as somebody who owns her own company, I have to figure out what are the things that drain my joy. And specifically for me, it is things around, well, anything that involves a spreadsheet. But so like the finances, all of that. So I have had to figure out, well, what are the things that I can do, but it is soul sucking for me. Um, and then when I was only by myself, you do have to start. And sometimes it just takes a little time and you have to get to the point where somebody else can help you. But I made a lot of investments early in outsourcing some things that actually meant that I could have more joy doing what I do, which made my business grow. So even when you work for yourself, there's a bunch of stuff that you don't want to do. There are things that nobody wants to do. That's why it's not 0% toil, as long as you can keep the toil under 10. I mean, I love sending my receipts to Madison. Bless her. Like she, and she loves it. Like she's like, hey, can I send you that? Like it's just, she's great. And it's something she loves because everybody's joy is different. So even if you work for yourself, it's similar to working on a team inside an organization. You just have more responsibility and more perceived control over the way things go, but not always. And some people don't want to have that level of responsibility. And so working in an organization or in a company makes sense for them. And they just have to work at a little bit of finding, well, what are the things that I'm best at, and finding the right fit of a job that's going to bring them joy.
What is the Joy Explorer map?
Oh, the Joyosity Explorer map is really it's a free resource, and it's at jennwhitmer.com/joyosity-explorer. And when you go through the map, what it does is it helps you define, well, what are the things that really bring me joy? I was just working with a client right before we got on, and he was saying, I don't take the time to uncover this. Like I have these vague words that I say in an interview, but walking through this makes it so much clearer. And so that's what that process is. So helping you figure out, well, what are the things that actually bring me joy? What are the things that drain my joy? And then it walks you through a process of, well, what can I actually do with this information? Because it's nice to know, but information ain't transformation. You got to do something. And so the Explorer map walks you through 5 steps to actually start trying to choose, well, what can I do that gets me more joy in a very practical kind of 1% change kind of way.
I see the word joyosity, and I've been toying. There's this one word challenge that a lot of people do for the new year. And in past years, I've used the word finish
Oh,
because I am
mm-hmm.
notorious for not finishing things. It turned into an inside joke. My wife would say to me, "Did you finish?" Whatever it happened to be that I was working on.
I feel you.
A commit is
Mm-hmm.
another one that I've used. And I've been thinking about doing that with either the word joy or joyosity. For this year, for
I
2025,
love it.
it was present. Be present.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
Whether it was in relationships or in doing an interview like with someone like you for a radio show, whatever it happened to be, a baseball lesson, be present in that moment for that 7-year-old kid who can't figure out which end of a baseball to hold when he throws it. So I've
Sure.
thought joy or joyosity might actually work.
I think it's great. A lot of people I have found me on Instagram or LinkedIn, and they're like, "I chose joy this year," like their word of the year, uh, kind of thing. And what I love about choosing joy or joyosity, because joy and joyosity is a combination of joy and curiosity, because you need curiosity to sustain joy, and you need joy to put curiosity in the right direction. But whenever you choose a word like that, it gives our squirrel minds a focus point. It's almost tangible to bring it back to, okay, this is what I'm focusing on right now. And then you tend to make different choices because your brain can't do what's called negative attention. So whatever you bring your attention to is what your mind can do. And so when you choose a word like that, I mean, I love it. I think it's fantastic. And this year, the book is going to be in bookstores, and well, it is in bookstores, but also in airports. And they're as part of this new year. And I think if more people chose joy, what would our world be like? It's very practical. And it's powerful. It's viral. If you have joy at work, you are 3.5 times more likely to help other people. Your team is 25% more productive. It's not something fluffy out there. And so I think choosing joy is an incredibly powerful word for your year.
The book is called Joyosity: How to Cultivate Intense Happiness in Work and Life, with the book subtitle, Even If Things Are What They Are. Jenn
Yes,
Whitmer,
yes.
thank you so much for your time. You can learn more about Jenn and everything that she does at jennwhitmer.com. And let's put that word
Yeah,
joyosity
here
to
we go.
work this year.
Yay, yay. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.